In the highlands of Oaxaca, where mist clings to the mountain ridges like silver smoke, a people once called themselves Dzahui, the people of the rain god. To the outside world, they are known as the Mixtecs, the artisans of gold, jade, and turquoise, a civilization suspended between myth and memory. Long before Spanish ships broke the horizon, their cities glittered among the clouds, Tilantongo, Tututepec, and Mitla, woven into the valleys like sacred tapestries. Their kings claimed descent from divine ancestors, born from trees, rocks, and rivers. Their scribes wrote on deerskin scrolls, their stories carved in color and symbol. The codices that whispered of love, betrayal, and the dance of gods. The Mixtecs lived in a world of beauty and symmetry. Goldsmiths of unparalleled skill, they shaped ornaments for both kings and the gods. Warriors painted their bodies in indigo and red, marching under banners of the rain god Dzahui, whose thunder guided their fates. But even among the clouds, darkness gathered. Rival city-states fought for power. Priests read omens in the bones of the sacrificed. And when the Spaniards came with steel and cross, the songs of the Mixtec hills began to fade. Their codices burned, their gods silenced, their temples swallowed by vines. Yet even now, when the mists roll over Oaxaca, the past breathes again, the echoes of drums, the hum of rain, and the gold shimmer of a lost kingdom rise from the earth. This is their story, of art and devotion, of pride and downfall, the long dream of the Mixtec civilization. High above the valleys of southern Mexico, the clouds drift like living spirits. Beneath them, where the earth folds into hills and terraces, the Mixtecs were born. They called their land Dzahui, the land of the rain god. Every drop that fell from the sky was a blessing, and every storm a conversation with the divine. In this sacred landscape, myth and reality were one. The Mixtecs believed that the first rulers were born from the union of earth and sky, emerging from trees, caves, and sacred stones. Among them was the legendary Lord Deer Jaguar Claw, whose name would echo across centuries. He was not merely a warrior, but a symbol of ambition, of destiny, of how a mortal could touch the realm of gods. The Mixtecs had no need for vast empires or sweeping plains. Their world was carved into steep mountains where each valley held a city-state. Tilantongo, Tututepec, and Coixtlahuaca rose like jewels. Each ruled by its own noble house, each competing in ritual, in trade, and in prestige. Between them lay fertile terraces of maize, beans, and amaranth, dotted with temples whose walls glowed under the rain. From an early age, a Mixtec child learned that everything had spirit. The wind, the fire, even the tools of a craftsman. Before cutting stone or shaping gold, artisans whispered prayers to the elements. The gods, they believed, listened to human hands as much as to human hearts. The rain god Dzahui watched over them all. He was fierce yet merciful, and his image adorned temples from mountaintop to valley floor. When clouds darkened the sky, people knelt in silence, awaiting his tears to fall. Priests burned incense, musicians played shell trumpets, and dancers circled fires until dawn. In the glow of lightning, it seemed as though Dzahui himself moved among them, a shimmering presence in the mist. As generations passed, the Mixtecs became master builders, farmers, and artists. Their codices, painted on deerskin with bright pigments of red, blue, and gold, recorded lineages, wars, and marriages with poetic precision. Unlike alphabetic writing, Mixtec script was visual, each glyph a story, each color an emotion. Through these manuscripts, they told of divine births, heroic deeds, and tragic ends. But even as they painted their history, fate began to weave darker threads. Ambitious kings sought to unite the fractious valleys. Sacred marriages turned into betrayals. Temples that once sang to the gods began to whisper of blood. Lord Deer Jaguar Claw, the child of prophecy, would soon rise to greatness. But his rise would set in motion the wars that would divide the Mixtecs forever. Still, in those first centuries, before conquest and chaos, the Mixtec heart was pure. Their world was filled with balance between rain and sun, sky and soil, God and man. And in every home, the people believed that when the rains returned, their ancestors whispered among the clouds. The Mixtecs were not just a people of warriors or rulers. They were dreamers of stone and color. Their cities were not fortresses, but poems built in clay. Their codices were not chronicles, but prayers. And though time would one day bury their altars, the spirit of the rain people would linger, soft as mist, eternal as water. The Mixtec world shimmered in fragments, valleys separated by ridges, kingdoms divided by clouds. For centuries, the people of the rain had lived in quiet rivalry, bound by trade, by marriages, and by ritual wars. Yet, in the 11th century, from the city of Tilantongo, a man rose whose name would echo through every codex ever painted. Lord Deer Jaguar Claw. He was born beneath an omen of thunder. The priests read it in the stars, a child destined to unite kingdoms and shake the order of gods. From his youth, Deer was both diplomat and warrior, poet and conqueror. He spoke to oracles, trained with obsidian blades, and learned the sacred language of the Codices. When he came of age, he declared, "The rain does not fall for one valley alone." The dream of unification, Deer's vision was bold, to bring together the scattered Mixtec kingdoms into one realm of strength and culture. Through alliances sealed by marriage and victories carved in blood, he expanded Tilantongo's reach. One by one, city-states bent the knee or fell before his obsidian spear. But his ambition was not only for conquest. He wanted to build something that would outlast the rain, temples of gold and jade, codices that told of his glory. He sent artisans across the land to create objects so fine that even the Aztecs, centuries later, would whisper of Mixtec goldsmiths with awe. The warrior king, on the battlefield, he was a storm. Wearing jaguar skins and turquoise armor, he led his warriors through forests thick with mist, his banner painted with the sacred glyph of the deer and the rain. Legends say that his war drums could summon lightning. When he marched upon Tututepec, even the rivers changed course. His enemies called him the Thunder Made Flesh. Yet behind the glimmer of his victories, shadows deepened. His rise demanded sacrifices, of friends, of faith, of family. The priesthood murmured that he defied the gods by placing his own image beside Dzahui's in the temples. The price of power, Deer's greatness was mirrored by tragedy. He betrayed alliances that once secured his crown. Those who had fought beside him became rivals. His own kin turned against him, and prophecies began to twist. In the Codex Zusha, the painted story of his life, his triumphs are followed by signs of doom, falling stars, serpents devouring hearts, and clouds turning red. He was finally captured and slain during a ritual, his heart offered to the gods he once invoked. The chroniclers marked his death not as defeat, but as transformation. The man who reached too close to the divine, consumed by the storm he summoned. The legacy, Yet long after his bones returned to dust, his dream endured. His campaigns united much of the Mixtec world. His codices survived the centuries, their painted scenes glowing with life. His artisans, freed from fear, created a golden age of Mixtec art, jewelry like sunlight, masks of turquoise and coral, and manuscripts that outlasted empires. Through 8 Deer Jaguar Claw, the Mixtecs glimpsed what it meant to defy destiny. He had touched both heaven and earth, and in doing so, left a kingdom balanced forever between them. When the rains came, the people whispered his name in reverence and sorrow. For in every storm, they said, there was the echo of his steps, the thunder of a king who dreamed beyond the clouds. After the thunder of Lord 8 Deer Jaguar Claw faded into legend, the valleys of Oaxaca entered a gentler age. The swords were sheathed, the drums of war quieted, and in their place rose the sounds of chisels, the whisper of brushes, and the hum of prayers. The Mixtec world had discovered something eternal, the beauty of remembrance. The builders of the rain. Their cities were no longer made for conquest, but for worship. High terraces and plazas climbed the mountain slopes, lined with temples that glowed like amber in the morning mist. Tilantongo, the old heart of empire, became a sanctuary of artists and scribes. Mitla, the place of rest, shone with intricate mosaics of red and white stone. Patterns so precise that no mortar was needed, each piece fitted like a secret prayer. In the evening, when the last rays of sun touched the temples, the stones reflected the colors of fire and rain. To the Mixtecs, this was no coincidence. It was the voice of Dzahui, the rain god speaking through the earth itself. The Codices, memory painted on skin. Among the Mixtecs, history was not written with words, but painted with symbols. They used deerskin scrolls, carefully stretched, smoothed, and coated with lime to hold vivid pigments. Onto these sacred pages, scribes painted the journeys of kings, the marriages of dynasties, and the wars of gods. Each line, each color carried meaning. Red was for blood and sacrifice, blue for water and divinity, gold for the eternal. The Codex Nuttall, the Codex Bodley, the Codex Vindobonensis. These are the whispers that survived time. They are more than records. They are dreams made visible, the memories of a people who spoke in images instead of words. In the dim halls of the temples, priests unrolled these codices during ceremonies. The painted ancestors seemed to rise from the parchment, their eyes bright, their steps eternal. Children would watch in awe as stories unfolded, each image moving in rhythm with the chants. The Mixtecs did not simply remember, they relived. The masters of gold. If the Maya ruled the stars and the Aztecs commanded armies, then the Mixtecs ruled the art of creation. Their goldsmiths were the envy of Mesoamerica. With tools of bone and obsidian, they melted, cast, and shaped gold into filigrees lighter than breath. They made crowns for kings and necklaces for gods, each reflecting sunlight like liquid fire. Even the Aztecs, who conquered their lands centuries later, would call them the masters of gold. But for the Mixtecs, beauty was not vanity. It was worship. To shape gold was to honor the divine, to bring heaven's light down to earth. Each mask, each pendant was part of a cosmic offering, a bridge between mortals and gods. The weavers of eternity beyond gold and codices, the Mixtecs were also weavers of textiles finer than any in Mesoamerica. Their cottons were dyed in shades of indigo and cochineal red, embroidered with sacred symbols, rain, deer, serpent, and cloud. To wear such cloth was to carry the universe upon one's shoulders. At festivals, Dancers adorned in these garments moved beneath rain-slick skies, spinning like drops of water. The scent of copal incense rose. Flutes echoed through the valley. It was as though the earth itself exhaled peace. The calm before the storm. But as centuries turned, whispers of war and hunger began to stir again. The Mixtec valleys, rich in art and trade, became coveted by neighbors. Tribute demands grew. Priests saw new omens in the stars: fire, iron, strangers from beyond the sea. For now, though, the Mixtecs still lived in harmony. They painted, built, and prayed, believing that the rhythm of rain would never end. Yet far beyond the horizon, sails of white cloth were rising, carrying men who spoke of one God and one king. The world of the Mixtecs was about to change forever. The mists of Oaxaca had always brought the rain. But one day, the mist brought something else. Whispers of pale men from across the sea, carrying thunder and fire. The Mixtecs heard the rumors first from distant traders, that in the east, vast floating temples had appeared on the horizon, that men in shining shells had defeated the mighty Aztecs, that the old gods were falling silent. At first they laughed, for how could any power break the empire of Tenochtitlan, heart of the world? But as months turned into years, the stories grew darker, and the laughter faded. The shadow over the mountains. By 1521, when the Mexica capital burned, the echoes reached Oaxaca's valleys. The Spanish had come with horses, guns, and the cross, and wherever they walked, the old kingdoms crumbled. When the first Spanish riders appeared on the mountain roads, the Mixtecs did not know whether to fear or to worship them. Their skin was pale as bone, their weapons thundered, their faith spoke of one God and eternal judgment. The priests of Dzahui offered incense to protect the people, but the smoke could not stop iron. The Mixtec lords, proud heirs of ancient lineages, met to decide their fate. Some believed these strangers were the return of old gods. Others saw only invaders. The council divided, and that division would doom them. The fall of the lords at Tututepec, the last great stronghold of Mixtec independence. Warriors lined the walls with spears of obsidian and shields of wood. But gunfire tore through their defenses. The thundersticks, muskets, broke the silence of centuries. Horses, never seen before in these mountains, charged through the terraces, scattering soldiers like leaves. The Mixtec warriors fought with courage, but courage was not enough. Their arrows shattered on steel, their obsidian blades dulled against armor. And above it all, Spanish banners gleamed. The red cross rising where once Dzahui's symbol had flown. One by one, the lords of the valley surrendered. Those who resisted were enslaved or killed. The Spaniards demanded tribute, not maize or jade, but gold, the very metal that had once been sacred. The Mixtec goldsmiths, masters of creation, were forced to melt their own treasures to pay their conquerors. The brilliance of centuries vanished into dull ingots shipped across the ocean. The cross and the codex, the new faith arrived swiftly. Temples of Dzahui were torn down to build churches, priests replaced by friars, songs of rain replaced by hymns of salvation. The codices, those painted memories of gods and kings, were declared heresy. Many were burned in plazas, their colors turned to smoke. But not all. Some were hidden in caves, buried beneath altars, or smuggled into distant monasteries. It was these fragments that would one day tell the world the story of the Mixtecs again. The people who endured. For the Mixtecs, survival became an art of silence. They learned new prayers but whispered old ones beneath their breath. They worked Spanish fields but still offered maize to the rain. In hidden rituals, the people remembered the names of their gods, Dzahui, Kozobi, and Yandikandi, not as rulers of heaven, but as spirits of memory. Centuries passed. Their kingdoms were gone, their cities in ruins. Yet the people endured, in craft, in song, in faith. The new Dzahui had become farmers and artisans again, their nobility stripped away, but their soul intact. When it rained over the mountains, elders still looked up and whispered, "The rain god remembers." The echo of the old world. In the chronicles written by Spaniards, the Mixtecs became a footnote, another lost tribe, another fallen city. But to the people of Oaxaca, they remained the heart of the land. Their language survived in songs, their gold in church relics, their codices in foreign libraries. Even the conquerors, centuries later, would marvel at their art, their architecture, their endurance. The rain people had been conquered, but never erased. Their gods hid in the clouds, their stories hid in paint. And when thunder rolled across the mountains, it was said that the spirit of 8 Deer Jaguar Claw still walked through the mist, watching, waiting, remembering. The mountains of Oaxaca still shimmered with mist. The terraces still caught the morning light, and the sound of rainfall still echoed through the valleys. But the people who once called themselves New Dzahui, the people of the rain god, now lived in silence beneath the shadow of foreign rule. Their temples were gone, their kings forgotten, their gold melted and shipped across an ocean. Yet, though the old world had fallen, something within the Mixtec heart refused to die. Like the rain itself, it would vanish, then return again. Beneath the cross, the old god slept. In the centuries after the conquest, Spanish friars built churches atop the ruins of Mixtec temples. At Mitla, sacred mosaics were torn down to make way for chapels. At Tilantongo, the old palace of Lord 8 Deer was turned into a monastery. But beneath every altar lay memory. When the priests prayed to Christ, the farmers still whispered to Dzahui, god of the rain. When holy water was sprinkled, they saw in it the tears of the old gods. And when thunder rolled through the valleys, they made the sign of the cross. But their hearts remembered another name. The Mixtec people learned the art of hiding in plain sight. Their faith disguised itself in new rituals. Their language survived in lullabies. Their symbols were woven into Christian embroidery, suns, serpents, and rain clouds, small enough to escape the friar's notice. To outsiders, it seemed they had converted. To themselves, they had merely changed masks. The art that spoke in secret. The old gold was gone, but the hands that shaped it still lived. Mixtec artisans adapted, carving saints instead of gods, angels instead of warriors. Yet, in every sculpture, one could see the curves of an older world, a rain pattern hidden in a halo, a serpent coiled beneath a robe. Their art became a language of survival, quiet but unbroken. In their textiles, the colors of Dzahui still danced, indigo, red, and gold. In their pottery, the faces of ancestors still smiled behind Christian motifs. Every craft, every melody, every prayer became a way to remember, a way to keep the rain alive. The language of the clouds, the Mixtec tongue, Tuun Savi. The language of the rain was thought to fade, but it clung to the earth like dew. In the markets and the homes, people still spoke it softly, especially to children. Through lullabies and harvest songs, the ancient rhythm endured. Even now, centuries later, hundreds of thousands still speak Tuun Savi across Oaxaca, Puebla, and Guerrero. It has survived conquest, conversion, and centuries of silence, a miracle of endurance. spoken by descendants who still call themselves people of the rain. The return of the Codices. What the conquerors had tried to burn, history restored. In dusty archives across Europe, scholars rediscovered the old Mixtec Codices, the Codex Nuttall, Bodley, and Vindobonensis. They opened them not as relics, but as living stories, seeing in those bright glyphs the rise and fall of a civilization that had never truly died. For modern Mixtecs, these codices are not ancient art. They are letters from their ancestors. They tell them who they were and who they still are. The eternal rain. Today, when storms roll over Oaxaca, lightning flashes across the same hills where Lord Deer once walked. Children look to the sky, and elders tell them that the rain is Dzahui's breath, bringing life from the past into the present. In every drop that falls, there is memory of gold, of song, of struggle, of faith. The Mixtecs have endured empire, church, and time itself. They have learned that survival does not always roar. Sometimes it whispers, in prayer, in color, in rain. And so the rain keeps falling, century after century, never ending, never forgotten, just as the soul of the Mixtecs continues to flow through the valleys of Oaxaca. For centuries, the valleys of Oaxaca slept beneath the weight of silence. The world had moved on, empires rose and fell, nations were born. Yet beneath those green hills, the stones of the Mixtecs still dreamed. It was only when explorers and archaeologists began to dig that the world rediscovered what the people of Oaxaca had always known. Their ancestors had built kingdoms of gold and rain. The echo beneath the earth. In the 20th century, near the quiet town of Monte Alban, laborers uncovered something extraordinary. A royal tomb sealed since the 1300s. Inside lay gold jewelry, turquoise mosaics, coral beads, carved bones, and obsidian knives so sharp they still gleamed like mirrors. It was Tomb 7, one of the richest burial sites in all Mesoamerica. And though Monte Alban had been a Zapotec city, the treasures inside bore unmistakable Mixtec artistry. Gold discs engraved with the glyph of Dzahui, turquoise masks crafted with divine symmetry, and pendants shaped like raindrops. It was proof that even after the fall of their empire, Mixtec craftsmen had carried on their sacred art, working for gods, kings, and eternity itself. Archaeologists stared in awe. For the Mixtec descendants who still lived nearby, it was not a discovery. It was a homecoming. Their ancestors had been found, and through them, their story breathed again. The kingdoms of mist and stone. All across Oaxaca, beneath hills once thought ordinary, ruins began to emerge. At Mitla, the place of the dead, excavations revealed corridors lined with intricate mosaics, red and white stones forming endless geometric waves. At Uquida and Tilantongo, the remnants of palaces, temples, and courtyards spoke of rulers who once commanded the valleys. Every uncovered wall was a whisper from the past, every shard of pottery a fragment of a forgotten hymn. And as these fragments surfaced, the pattern became clear. The Mixtecs had built not in grand scale, but in precision and meaning. Their cities were sanctuaries, not fortresses, crafted to honor balance, beauty, and the gods of rain and life. The code of the artisans. Among the most profound discoveries were tools, chisels, molds, and ornaments, evidence of the Mixtec code of creation. Their craftsmen worked in silence, guided by ritual. Before melting gold, they would fast and pray. Before carving jade, they offered incense to the spirit of the stone. Every act of creation was an act of worship. Even centuries later, this reverence for craft endures. In the villages of Oaxaca today, artisans still work with the same devotion, weaving, carving, shaping metal and clay as their ancestors once did. Their hands move differently, perhaps, but their purpose is the same: to keep memory alive through beauty. The return of the Rain people. As archaeologists mapped the sites and museums displayed their treasures, something remarkable happened. The descendants of the Mixtecs began to reclaim their heritage. Communities formed cultural centers to teach Tu'un Savi, to paint the old glyphs, to tell the story of Lord Eight Deer to children once more. Where once their ancestors hid their faith in fear, now they displayed it proudly in murals, music, and festivals of rain. The rain that once symbolized survival now became a celebration, proof that no civilization, no matter how forgotten, truly disappears. The whisper of the hills. At sunset, when light falls across the valleys, the ruins glow as though alive. The air grows thick with warmth and sound, the hum of insects, the faint murmur of the wind, and one can almost hear drums echoing from the past. It is said that on nights of heavy rain, the spirits of the artisans return to their temples, hands bright with gold, painting the sky itself with colors no empire could ever steal. Beneath the modern world, the Mixtec kingdom still breathes, patient, enduring, eternal. Before the strangers arrived, before gold turned to grief, the Mixtec world was already a stage of endless intrigue. Unlike the Aztecs or the Maya, the Mixtecs never forged a single empire. Instead, they lived among 1,000 hills and 100 kings, bound by marriage, ritual, and war. Each valley was its own universe, and between those universes stretched an invisible web of alliances, betrayals, and sacred blood. The dance of the city-states. From Tilantongo to Tututepec, from Yanhuitlan to Coixtlahuaca, each city-state had its own ruler, a Yatoninye, or Lord of the Sacred Line. They ruled not just with warriors, but with symbols. A marriage could seal an alliance stronger than any sword. A festival could declare peace or war. A single insult between nobles could burn across the valleys like lightning. The Mixtec nobles wore crowns of turquoise, their faces painted in blue and red, and each carried a genealogy older than memory itself. In their codices, every ruler traced his bloodline back to divine ancestors, children of trees, stones, or the stars. To challenge such a ruler was to challenge the will of the gods. And yet, they fought. The ritual of blood and honor. Among the Mixtecs, war was not chaos, it was ceremony. Battles began with drums and incense, not ambushes. Warriors wore feathers and painted symbols of their lineage, their armor more artistic than practical. To die in battle was not defeat. It was a conversation with the gods, sealed in blood. Prisoners were often taken alive, not for cruelty, but for sacrifice. Their hearts were offered to Dzahui so that rain would continue to fall and maize would continue to grow. The Mixtecs did not see these acts as violence, but as balance, a way to renew the world. Still, the wars grew longer, the sacrifices deeper, and the ambitions sharper. The stories painted in the codices tell of wars that lasted generations, of kingdoms that rose and fell like the seasons. The rise of ambition. No ruler embodied this ambition more than Deer Jaguar Claw, whose legacy still haunted every Mixtec court. His dream of uniting the valleys inspired many, but it also left behind a shadow. Every noble sought to be another Eight Deer. Every city dreamed of dominion. But unity, once attempted, turned to rivalry. The very blood that bound the noble families together began to divide them. assassinations were cloaked in ceremony. Marriages became weapons. And in every temple, the priests of Dzahui whispered omens of thunder without rain, of serpents devouring their own tails. The Web Titans. By the 15th century, Mixtec politics had become a delicate web, shimmering, complex, and fragile. A single broken thread could unravel it all. When the Aztecs expanded southward from the Valley of Mexico, many Mixtec lords found themselves caught between survival and pride. Some allied with Tenochtitlan, paying tribute in gold and turquoise. Others resisted, trusting in the protection of Dzahui. This was the final age of kings, a time of magnificent art and quiet despair. The Mixtecs built grand temples and painted glorious codices. But behind the beauty, their strength was already splintering. The web that had held them together for 1,000 years began to tremble. The fall in slow motion. When the Spaniards arrived, the Mixtec world did not collapse in one great battle. It unraveled thread by thread. Divided by rivalry, their lords could not unite against the new enemy. Some sought Spanish friendship, others fought and fell, and many simply vanished into the mists of history. It was not fire that destroyed the Mixtec kingdoms, but fragmentation, the tragedy of too many thrones, too many gods, too many dreams. Yet even in defeat, the Mixtecs left behind something no conqueror could erase: their art, their language, and their memory of the rain. To the Mixtecs, the world was not built, it was painted. Every tree, every hill, every drop of rain was part of a vast divine composition, crafted by gods whose hands were colors and whose breath was music. They believed that creation was not a single act, but an eternal art, and that to live, to farm, to fight, to love, was to take part in that masterpiece. The sacred painter of the world. In the beginning, they said, there was only mist and motion. From that mist emerged Dzahui, the rain god, cloaked in blue and silver, his voice the sound of thunder. He painted the mountains with his tears, filled rivers with his laughter, and scattered maize upon the valleys so the people might live. Beside him stood Nine Wind, the lord of creation and movement, who carved time itself from the air. And from sacred trees and caves, the first ancestors, the new Dzahui, were born, each carrying the colors of their destiny. The Mixtecs did not see gods as distant beings, but as artists at work. Every storm, every harvest, every death was a stroke of divine intention. Thus, the human duty was not to resist fate, but to paint one's part of the mural with grace. The temple as canvas. Their temples were not only places of prayer, but living paintings in stone. Walls glowed with red and white mosaics, repeating patterns that symbolized infinity. Priests moved like dancers through corridors of light, their headdresses shaped like clouds, their robes embroidered with symbols of rain and maize. At sunrise, when the first light hit the temple walls, colors came alive. Red became blood, blue became sky, gold became divine fire. To witness that moment was to see the world reborn each morning. The art of balance. For the Mixtecs, beauty was never separate from faith. A mask of turquoise was not decoration, it was a gateway between man and God. A golden pendant was not luxury, it was an offering to eternity. Even warfare followed artistic laws, symmetry in movement, grace in death, precision in ritual. They believed that everything must exist in balance. The rain and the sun, the male and the female, creation and destruction. When balance broke, storms came, and when storms came, it was time for offerings. To sacrifice was not cruelty, it was the cost of harmony. The colors of the soul. Each color carried power. Red was blood and life. sacred to the east, where the sun was born. Blue belonged to the gods of rain and sky, where Dzahui ruled. Yellow was maize, the essence of humanity itself. Black marked death, wisdom, and renewal. The Mixtecs used these hues not only in painting, but in living. Their festivals followed the color of the season, their clothing the color of their lineage. When a king died, his face was painted with a sacred blue line, a symbol that he would return with the rain. The artists of the divine. To be an artist in the Mixtec world was to be touched by the gods. Goldsmiths, weavers, painters, all were priests in their own way. They did not create for fame, but for continuity, to ensure that the cosmic story never stopped. And so, each stroke of pigment, each carved glyph, was a prayer, an attempt to hold the world together for one more day. Centuries later, their works still shine. The turquoise masks gleam like captured sky. The gold filigree glows like trapped sunlight. Even in museums far from Oaxaca, one can sense the hum of devotion, the pulse of a people who believed that art was not a reflection of life, but life itself. The God who still paints when thunder rolls over the Mixtec valleys. The elders say that Dzahui is painting again. Each bolt of lightning, each flash of color across the sky is his brush touching the canvas of the world. And in that instant, the ancient balance returns. Rain on the maize, wind through the mountains, life from the clouds. For the people of the rain, faith was never in temples or idols. It was in the art of being alive, the art of honoring what was, what is, and what will forever fall from the heavens. For centuries, the story of the Mixtecs lay buried, not in sand, but in silence. Their gods forgotten, their temples broken, their voices fading into wind. Yet, somewhere in the archives of Europe, folded in dust and darkness, their memories slept. Painted not in ink, but in color and symbol. Those were the Codices, the books of the rain people. And when the modern world rediscovered them, the Mixtecs began to speak again. On the hidden scrolls, in monasteries across Spain and Italy, scholars found them. Narrow sheets of deerskin, folded like accordion fans, covered in bright reds, blues, and golds. At first, no one knew what they were. The letters were not letters, and the pictures were not mere art. But slowly the patterns revealed themselves. Kings, gods, wars, and marriages, arranged in sequences that told the rise and fall of whole worlds. Among them were the Codex Zushnutl, the Codex Bodley, and the Codex Vindobonensis, surviving like messages in a bottle, carried across oceans of time. Each one was a window into the ancient mind, each one a heartbeat of a vanished world. Now the painters who remembered the Mixtecs called their scribes and painters Tequico, those who paint the word. They were not mere artists, but keepers of truth. Every glyph, every symbol, every shade of color had meaning. In the Codex Nutl, one can follow the life of Lord 8 Deer Jaguar Claw, from his divine birth, through battles and alliances, to his final sacrifice. The Codex does not describe, it sings. Its images move like music, rhythm and color. There are no words for vengeance or sorrow, only gestures, colors, and shapes that tell them better than any alphabet ever could. The Tequico painted with brushes made from animal hair, using pigments ground from minerals and plants. Cochineal for red, indigo for blue, soot for black, and lime for white. Each stroke was both prayer and precision. To mispaint a glyph was to misremember a god. The language of time. The codices are not read from left to right, but in paths, spirals, diagonals, and crossroads, like the wandering of rain through the hills. They follow the 260-day ritual calendar, each day marked by a symbol: a jaguar, a reed, a house, a flint. Names themselves were dates: 8 deer, 5 movement, 12 lizard. Time was not linear, it was circular, repeating like the cycle of rain and drought. To the Mixtecs, history did not pass, it returned. Every king was an echo of a god, every war a reflection of one fought in the heavens. Through the codices, they preserved not events, but patterns, reminders that all things rise, fall, and rise again. But the scholars who listened. When the codices were first translated in the 19th and 20th centuries, Western scholars were astonished. Here was not primitive art, but a written philosophy, one that intertwined politics, myth, and the human soul. The Mixtecs had recorded genealogy with the precision of historians and the imagination of poets. For descendants of the Mixtecs, these rediscoveries were revelations. They could finally read the faces of their ancestors, the places of their birth, the journeys of their gods. In villages across Oaxaca, teachers began to show children the ancient glyphs again, not as relics, but as living memory. A codex, once buried in the Vatican, now became a map of identity for a people who had never vanished. Not the voice of the rain. Today, when a Mixtec elder looks upon the painted lines of a codex, he does not see history, he hears it. He hears drums echoing through valleys, he hears rain striking stone. He hears the whisper of ancestors saying, "We are still here." In those folds of deerskin, the rain still falls. The gods still speak. And the people of the rain, through art, through color, through centuries, continue to tell the world that nothing sacred is ever truly lost. In the modern valleys of Oaxaca, rain still comes suddenly, soft at first, then alive with thunder. The mountains turn green again, and the clouds descend so low they brush the rooftops. To outsiders, it's only weather. But to the descendants of the new Dzahui, the people of the rain, it is memory returning. Every storm is a visitation, a reminder that the old gods never left. The rebirth of identity centuries after conquest and silence. The Mixtec spirit began to rise again. In small villages, Yanhuitlan, Tamazulapan, Tlaxiaco, elders gathered children to tell them the stories once painted on deerskin. They spoke of Dzahui, of Lord 8 Deer Jaguar Claw, of the kingdoms that once ruled the mist. And as the children listened, something ancient awoke in their hearts. Pride. By the late 20th century, scholars, artists, and community leaders across Oaxaca began reviving Tu'unsavi, the language of the rain. They opened schools that taught in Mixtec, organized festivals for ancestral gods disguised as saints, and repainted murals on old church walls, not to defy, but to remember. In every color, they reclaimed what had once been stolen by time. The festivals of the rain. Every summer, when the first drops fall after the long dry season, the villages celebrate. Drums beat again in the plazas. Women wear the bright, woven garments of their ancestors, indigo, cochineal, and gold, while men dance as deer and eagles. In the crowd, one can hear both Spanish hymns and Mixtec prayers. The festival is called New Dzahui Nyuun, the Day of the Rain People. It is not only a prayer for crops, it is an act of continuity. Children carry clay figures of the rain god, painted in blue and white. Elders sprinkle cornmeal to the wind. And when thunder rolls, everyone falls silent, listening, as their ancestors did, to the voice of the divine. the art that never died. Across the region, artisans have revived the crafts of their forebears. Goldsmiths in Tututepec shape pendants and bracelets using the same filigree patterns found in Tomb 7 of Monte Alban. Weavers in Tezozatlan create textiles rich with ancient symbolism. Serpents for wisdom, maize for life, clouds for hope. To tourists, these are souvenirs. To the Mixtecs, they are acts of survival. Every thread a bridge between centuries. Even the old codices have returned home in digital form. At cultural centers, Mixtec children now learn to read the glyphs of their ancestors, tracing the steps of Lord Eight Deer, learning the old calendars, seeing themselves not as forgotten, but as descendants of kings and artisans of rain. In the song of the mountains, at dusk, the valleys are filled with sound. The hum of insects, the low echo of bells, the laughter of families walking home through rain-slick streets. And above it all, the clouds move slowly, as though guarding something sacred. The Mixtecs have learned what few civilizations ever do, that survival is not about conquest or empire, but persistence. They endured where others vanished, not through war, but through memory. By hiding their gods in stories, their faith in colors, and their pride in silence, until the time was right to speak again. Now they speak. In schools and radio stations, in poetry and film, the Mixtec voice is rising once more. It carries the rhythm of rain, the patience of stone, and the resilience of a people who never truly fell. Go to the eternal circle. As the thunder fades, the mountains of Oaxaca breathe quietly again. The terraces glisten, the maize stands tall. The same rain that fell on Deer Jaguar Claw now falls on his descendants. Farmers, artisans, teachers, storytellers. The world changes, but the rhythm remains. Rain, growth, silence, return. The Mixtecs have come full circle, from gods to kings, from ashes to renewal. They have proven what their ancestors always knew. Nothing born of rain can ever truly die. Night descends over the Oaxacan highlands. The air is heavy, fragrant with soil and smoke. From the mountains, thunder murmurs like a heartbeat. Ancient, patient, eternal. Somewhere in the dark, a single drop of rain falls onto the earth. Then another. Then 1,000 more. And as the people lift their faces to the sky, it feels as if time itself is weeping. Not in sorrow, but in remembrance. With the breath of the ancestors, they say that when the rain falls softly, it is Dzahui, the rain god, walking through his kingdom. His footsteps shimmer in puddles. His laughter trembles in the trees. Long ago, the Mixtecs painted him with wide eyes and a crown of turquoise, the bringer of water, the guardian of life. Now, centuries later, though his temples lie in ruins, his spirit still lingers. Every farmer who kneels to plant maize whispers his name without knowing it. Every drop that strikes the ground is a syllable in his endless song. The Mixtecs understood something that the modern world too often forgets. That memory is not kept in stone, nor in books, nor even in blood, but in rhythm. The rhythm of rain on earth, of seasons turning, of hands shaping clay and gold. Through that rhythm, the people of the rain have never vanished. They simply became part of the landscape itself. Or the silence between storms. History remembers empires that conquered, but not always those that endured. The Mixtecs were not builders of vast armies or rulers of distant lands. They were painters of existence, shaping meaning from color and time. Their greatness lay not in domination, but in balance between art and faith, power and humility, man and God. And though the world took their thrones, burned their codices, silenced their names, still their story returned, carried by the wind. The Spaniards built churches over their temples, but the rain still fell through the cracks. And through those cracks, the old world continued to breathe. Bowers the eternal rain. In the present, the Mixtec valleys sleep again beneath mist. The moonlight touches the ruins of Mitla, and the stones glow as if alive. A farmer hums an old tune while walking home, his footsteps echoing those of ancestors long gone. Somewhere above, thunder stirs. The clouds roll in, and the world feels once more like a painting reborn. The rain begins, steady, endless, forgiving. Each drop carries the voice of a people who never surrendered. Each flash of lightning writes their history again across the sky. For as long as rain falls on Oaxaca, the story of the new Dzahui will never end. It will whisper through rivers, shimmer through maze, and echo in every heart that still looks to the heavens and remembers that the gods once walked among clouds, that art can outlast empire, and that the rain never truly dies.